Hello, I'm Anthony Giarrusso, and this video is about discernment. Discernment is being able to come up with the correct course for reality when other people do not do so. When I was a child and a teenager, I was told, go to an adult if you ever need help. And because my parents reinforced that on me, if I ever needed help, I'd go to an adult. Well, there were a handful of situations where the adults didn't help. There were a few times when I was at church and being in middle school and elementary school, I was bullied by some of the other parish goers' kids. And when I told the parents of these bullies at church, they didn't want to believe it. They're thinking that their kids could never possibly do such a thing. Right? A lack of discernment from the parents. So there was a time when in high school we had a meeting. Me, my adoptive mother, the principal, the school nurse, and the vice principal. This was at the charter school. And these three adults, specifically the principal, the vice principal, and the nurse, we had a discussion. We were talking about Clorox. And I told them that I use the Clorox cleaning wipes, which do not have bleach in them, to clean the toilet. These three adults in front of my adoptive mother and me said, Anthony, you're wrong. Those cleaning wipes have bleach in it. And they were so adamant in their belief that there was bleach in the Clorox cleaning wipes that they claimed that I was incorrect. I still use these types of Clorox cleaning wipes today. And what does it say here? It says bleach free. This proved to me as a teenager that yes, there are adults that lack discernment. I've got some other good stories for you, though. This was back in middle school. I was literally just starting to make a friend with this person named Skylar. One day I was at the locker. I had the lock in my hand, and I guess he was either too close to me or whatever, but it accidentally hit him in the face when I turned around. And somehow, I'm not entirely sure, because I don't ever remember him ever going to tell anyone or anything. Apparently, the vice principal came to me about this issue. I told her that it was just an accident. I turned around, like nothing really there or anything to really worry about. But they gave me a detention. On the same day, some other person who really isn't really a bully or wasn't really a bully at the time crashed into me, and I fell on the ground and scraped up both my knees, so I couldn't go to detention. But I don't think he ever went to detention. So the next day they make me go to detention. My knees are all scraped up. They have like these bandages on them. And they asked all the students, why are you in detention today? And every single person, including me, I have to admit, we all said, we were wrongfully put in here. Okay? So the next day, after I had this detention, Skylar comes up to me and he said, I actually took another lock and hit myself in the eye with it to make it look even worse to get you in trouble. I immediately stopped being friends with that person. But it just proves to me that adults don't always have the best discernment. Now let's go back even further into my path. There was this new vice principal at my elementary school. A total, what I would call today, a leftist lunatic. Okay? I think I was like I don't remember which grade. It was either like second or third or maybe fourth. I don't remember. But it was an elementary school out at the playground. There was no teacher out on duty on the playground at that particular time on that particular day. That's a little suspicious, right? Could have just been incompetence. I don't know. Whatever. So 3 students decided to try to bully me, and they were trying to beat me up. And I bit one of the other students. Okay? Because they were attacking me, this was my way to defend myself. This blonde-haired principal, like vice principal, like the new hire or whatever, I told her the story of what happened. And she's like, no, this is your fault, and trying to put all the blame on me and not the other kids. So my adoptive mom got involved and called the regular principal, and I talked with Mr. Fosher, who was the principal at the time. He's still my favorite principal I've ever had, and I think he's still alive. I really hope he's still alive. He used to run at the Boston Marathon. You know, he really had a passion for that. I really hope that that guy's still alive. But he was probably one of my favorite people of all time. Definitely my favorite principal of all time. And I told him what happened. The blonde principal lady was let go from her job, like right after this situation happened, which proved to me that this lady did not have good discernment, and the real principal did have excellent discernment, because those other 3 boys got in trouble. I don't know if they got expelled. All I know is I never saw them again. Or at least I don't ever remember seeing them ever again. Maybe they just moved them to another class. I have no idea. All I know is, yes, some adults have good discernment, but not every adult has good discernment, and this can relate to politics. When I was about 4 years old, you know, I couldn't use the internet, and I could only base my judgments based on what I had personally heard on the TV about what was going on. There were 3 Democrat politicians. I kept hearing their names pop up. And I realized as a 4-year-old child who was not fooled by anything of what they said, they were literally saying the exact opposite of what I learned in church. These 3 people were Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, and John Kerry. And the priests at my church, they were teaching about love and respect and keeping our country strong. These 3 Democrats had the exact opposite narrative. A very leftist, very unusual, at least to me, way of thinking. And because these three politicians were saying the exact opposite of what the priests were teaching in church, I knew that these three people were evil. I had better discernment than the adults who voted or elected for these individuals, which then again proved to me that, some kids and some teenagers are just smarter than adults. And going to adults could be actually detrimental to your reality and actually end up hurting you. When I was that young, there was only really one person giving the same narrative, or at least a narrative that fit with what I was being taught by the priests at church. And at the time, this was the 2000 election, there's only one candidate that stood out to me. And it's not the candidate that both my parents voted for. Both my parents voted for George W. Bush. But to me, the person that I really liked, with the limited knowledge that I had, remember I'm a 4-year-old child at the time, didn't have access to the internet, I would say John McCain was the best person for the job to become president. I even asked my mom to come and take me to a John McCain speech because I was really interested in that particular candidate, and she did. I don't think my dad was interested in John McCain. I think he was really a George W. Bush supporter, like full on out at that time. But I do wonder, how would the world have turned out if John McCain was president instead of George W. Bush? Because a lot of what ended up, as I started learning about John McCain and some of these things that people viewed as negative that came up in his career, well, that came up in his career because he wasn't president. So it's like, what would have happened if he was president instead of being forced into these other political jobs? It's a good question. As a middle schooler, people liked Barack Obama for reasons that I cannot explain. Okay? Nothing he said sounded remotely Catholic, Christian, Islamic, Hebrew, or really any pro-religion. Even though he claimed to be a Muslim, he definitely did not act like a Muslim. There was no God in his soul. And I picked up on that right away. And I'm thinking, you would have to be nuts to vote for Barack Obama. There's no way this guy's going to win. The majority of people that I personally knew, even the Democrats I knew, claimed that they would never vote for Barack Obama. Well, Barack Obama became president. And at that time, I'm thinking, okay, if the majority of Americans want somebody who's this communist and talking about all these things that would put the USA and its infrastructure and its security at risk, maybe it's not good enough for me to be an American. That's what I literally thought at the time when he got elected. Then it's re-election time. Now, I could have voted, but I chose not to because I was only old enough to vote for two particular politicians. I could have voted for Mitt Romney or Barack Obama. and I didn't like either of them. The people I liked back then, I really liked Ron Paul. I liked Rand Paul. I liked Chris Christie, even though I don't think he was running at the time, but I liked him as a politician because I knew about him from before. And I liked, there's one other guy, I forget his name. Well, anyway, it was just another Republican. And I'm like, I would love for these guys, maybe to just get into their offices and do the best job they possibly can, and that would settle things maybe. Somehow, Barack Obama got reelected, and then you had the Ancient Aliens meme, the Giarrusso guy with the silly hair, and him doing this. There's a meme that's like, Barack Obama reelected aliens, right? Only aliens would make it so that Barack Obama could get reelected. When Barack Obama got reelected, for the first time in my life, I'm thinking, this political race had to have been rigged. There had to have been election fraud for Barack Obama's reelection, because there's literally no way a reasonable-minded person would reelect Barack Obama. Back then, the other person, I remember her name, because it wasn't a him, it was a her. That was Sarah Palin. I was pretty impressed with Sarah Palin back then. The 2016 election comes around, and I'm really liking Rand Paul. I'm really liking Michael Huckabee at the time. Still a Chris Christie guy, and definitely a Donald Trump guy. Those are the four people that I really followed intensely during the Republicans running against each other out of all the other groups and out of all of the other candidates. This was kind of interesting. Right, my adoptive mother, she was really into Marco Rubio. I wasn't, and that's mostly because Hillary Clinton literally, I don't know if she plagiarized or if somebody wrote the same speech for both of them, but Marco Rubio and Hillary Clinton had the exact same speech, and I'm thinking Marco Rubio seems to be more like a Democrat than a Republican. So I didn't like him. My adoptive dad, he was a Ted Cruz, John Kasich kind of person, not really interested in the people that I liked. So it's just interesting how all these Republicans have different ideologies of who they'd like to win. That's just really interesting to me. During the Trump campaign, we learned a lot about the government. And I started to realize, oh my goodness, when George H.W. Bush didn't win the election, and they literally installed Bill Clinton, I'm thinking, that's just like what happened with Biden. It seems like they installed Biden, this Democrat. And then I'm starting to think, oh my goodness, You know, Bill Clinton was not a popular candidate at the beginning. Okay. And even people in Arkansas, when he was governor, a lot of people didn't like him. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, there was definitely election fraud during the Clinton years. But there may have even been election fraud for George W. Bush to win. There may have been election fraud for Barack Obama's first term. There may have been election fraud for Barack Obama's second term. Election fraud for Hillary Clinton, and even, yeah, who's that cringy, that cringy Republican that I don't like? I already forgot his name. He's such a jerk. His wife has MS and he can't even help her off the stage. Mitt Romney. That cringe. That's almost like Mitt Romney was fraudulently pushed as the popular Republican, and Hillary Clinton was fraudulently pushed as the popular Democrat. But somehow Donald Trump won, which is amazing. I knew that there was a lot of support for Donald Trump, but seeing how Hillary Clinton and her superdelegates and all this control in the Democrat Party really showed how corrupt Democrats are and how lack of corruption the Republicans are. But it was also interesting to see that some Republicans, like Mitt Romney, and I'd probably throw Marco Rubio into this boat as well, had corruption. But even with their corruption, in comparison to the Clintons and the Democrat Party, it's almost minuscule. And me having this excellent discernment to understand this allowed me to become more confident in my own abilities to share and point out government corruption. There was a guy who was a janitor at the Toyota that I worked at as a salesman. And it was lunchtime, and you know, all the people are in the Toyota back room having their lunch or whatever. And it was mostly filled that day. And we're talking about the news and all that stuff or whatever. And I didn't even have to bring it up. It was just somebody else was already talking about it. And the janitor guy says, I watch CNN. I get the real news from them. And then everybody in that room was like, you don't want to watch CNN. That's the fakest news ever. I know, it was just really funny. So that would have been 2017. And Donald Trump, I remember at the beginning of his campaign and also when he took office as president, the fake news media and all this fake news was what everyone talked about. People could not stand all the lies of the mainstream media. And that helped allow all these other people have better discernment now that they understood that they had been deceived before. I'm not entirely sure what made me want to video record this, especially on 5/2/2023. But I felt like I needed to record this. I don't know when I'll be posting this video, but I felt like I needed to record this today. And I'll try to get this video up when I feel like it's the right time. I don't feel like it's the right time to post this today. I don't know why I needed to make this video at all, but I felt like I needed to make it today, but it's not the right day to post it. So when I feel like it's the right day to post it, that's when I will use my discernment and you will be watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe and press the like button. Goodbye.